Americans leave 768 million vacation days unused every single year. That's not a typo. Nearly a billion days of paid time off. Just sitting there, collecting dust while people sit at their desks, answering emails they could have ignored. And here's the wild part. Nobody is forcing them. No one is holding a gun to their heads. They are choosing this. So the real question isn't why companies won't give people time off. The question is why millions of Americans look at a free vacation and say, "No thanks, I'd rather keep working." The psychology behind that decision is stranger, darker, and more fascinating than anything you'd expect. The numbers don't lie. Let's start with what's actually happening. The United States is one of the only wealthy countries in the world with no law requiring employers to give workers paid vacation. 0. Countries like France guarantee 30 days. Germany gives workers at least 20. Even tiny nations most Americans couldn't find on a map offer more mandatory rest than the self-proclaimed land of the free. And yet, even when American workers do get vacation days, they don't use them. A study by the U.S. Travel Association found that over half of American workers ended the year with unused paid time off. These aren't people with no options. These are people actively walking away from benefits they already earned. The average American worker forfeits about 4 vacation days per year. Multiply that across the workforce, and you get $65 billion in lost benefits annually. People are essentially handing their employers free labor and calling it dedication. So what is going on inside the heads of these people? Why does the most vacation-rich country in terms of cultural mythology, road trips, summer breaks, the American dream, produce workers who can't seem to stop working? The martyr badge. Here's something uncomfortable. A big chunk of Americans don't skip vacation because they have to. They skip it because it makes them feel important. There's a term researchers use called work martyrdom. It describes people who wear their busyness like a trophy. When someone says, "I haven't taken a day off in 2 years," they're not complaining. They're bragging. Being busy has become a status symbol in America, in a way it simply isn't in most other countries. In Italy, shutting down the whole town for an August holiday is normal and respected. In America, the person who skips their holiday and answers emails from the hospital waiting room gets called a team player. This isn't just a workplace habit. It's a cultural identity. Somewhere along the way, Americans started linking their personal value to their productivity. If you're not producing something, you're not worth much. Rest started to feel like laziness. Vacation started to feel like a confession, an admission that maybe you weren't that important after all, and social media made it worse. Seeing co-workers post work wins while you're sitting on a beach creates a quiet panic. What if something happens while I'm gone? What if they realize they don't need me? The fear factory. That panic has a name. Researchers call it vacation guilt, and it runs deeper than most people realize. Studies show that a significant number of American workers are afraid that taking time off will make them look less committed. They worry their boss will question their dedication. They worry coworkers will judge them. Some even worry that being away too long will reveal that their job could be done without them. And that's the fear nobody talks about out loud. Think about that for a second. People are skipping rest, skipping recovery, skipping time with their families, not because work actually needs them, but because they're scared of what it means if work doesn't. This fear gets worse the higher up the ladder someone climbs. Senior employees and managers are actually less likely to take full vacations than entry-level workers. The more someone has built their identity around their job, the more threatening it feels to step away from it, even briefly. There's also something called telepressure, the feeling that you need to respond to work messages immediately, even on days off. It's become so normal that many workers can't even enjoy a weekend without checking their inbox. The idea of going fully offline for 2 weeks feels to many Americans like jumping off a cliff. What America taught everyone to believe. This didn't happen by accident. The American work ethic has deep roots. Early settlers in the country operated under a belief system that essentially said, hard work is a moral good, and rest is something you earn only after you've done enough. That idea never fully went away. It just got a new suit and a LinkedIn profile. Corporate culture in the 1980s and 1990s supercharged this mindset. The era of 80-hour work weeks being glorified, of rise and grind being not just acceptable but admirable, planted seeds that are still growing today. Companies quietly rewarded workers who never left. They promoted the people who answered emails at midnight, and everyone else watched and learned the lesson. Schools reinforced it too. American kids are taught from a young age that success comes from outworking the competition. Rest isn't taught as a strategy. It's treated as a reward for people who've already won, not a tool for getting there. By the time someone enters the workforce, the belief is already fully formed. Stopping means falling behind. The body keeps the score. Here's where it gets serious. Chronic overwork isn't just a lifestyle choice. It's a health crisis that America largely refuses to name. Studies consistently show that people who don't take vacations have significantly higher rates of heart disease, anxiety, depression, and burnout. One long-running study found that men who skipped vacations for several years in a row were significantly more likely to die of a heart attack than those who took regular time off. The brain physically needs downtime to function well. When people don't rest, their decision-making gets worse, their creativity drops, their memory weakens. They become less effective at the very job they refuse to leave. And the cruelest part? Many overworked Americans don't even notice it happening. Burnout creeps in slowly. It doesn't announce itself. One day, someone is a high performer, and the next they're running on empty and wondering why everything feels so heavy. Productivity in the US has barely moved in years, despite the fact that Americans work more hours than workers in almost every other developed country. More hours, less result. The math isn't working. The companies know. Now here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Companies are not unaware of this psychology. Many of them depend on it. When a worker feels guilty about taking time off, when they're scared to be seen as replaceable, when their identity is tied up in being the hardest worker in the room, that worker is easier to manage. They're less likely to push back on unreasonable demands. They're less likely to ask for raises. They're less likely to leave. Some companies have moved to unlimited vacation policies that sound generous on the surface. But research shows that workers with unlimited vacation policies actually take fewer days off than those with a fixed number. Why? Because unlimited means no clear guideline. And without a clear guideline, the unspoken rule takes over. The real expectation is that you won't use it much at all. It's a neat trick. Offer unlimited freedom and watch people voluntarily limit themselves out of fear of judgment. The shift happening right now. Something has started to change, though. Younger American workers, particularly those who entered the workforce after 2020, are pushing back. The pandemic forced millions of people to stop. And when they stopped, many of them realized that the world didn't end. Work kept going. And they got a glimpse of what life could look like if rest wasn't a reward, but a right. Terms like quiet quitting, which really just means working your contracted hours and nothing more, became mainstream. The idea of work-life balance shifted from a perk people hoped for to a baseline expectation millions now demand. Companies that ignored this started losing talent fast. The workers who had options chose employers who actually encouraged time off, who measured performance by output instead of hours logged, and who didn't treat rest as a character flaw. The culture is cracking, slowly, but it's cracking. The question nobody is asking. But here's what nobody is asking loudly enough. If Americans are finally waking up to the damage that overwork causes, if younger workers are drawing firmer lines and demanding better, why are burnout rates still climbing? Why are antidepressant prescriptions at record highs? Why do studies keep showing that despite all the conversation about wellness and balance, the average American worker is more stressed today than they were 20 years ago? Something is still broken. And the fix isn't as simple as booking a flight or turning on an out-of-office reply. Because the real problem isn't the vacation days. It's something deeper, something baked into the way Americans understand who they are and what they're worth. And that's not something a 2-week beach trip is going to solve. The psychology runs far deeper than most people are willing to admit. And what researchers have found sitting at the bottom of it might completely change how you see the way you work.